First of all, just let me introduce who is here to illustrate some important support for those individuals who put all those wonderful food products on our tables across the state of New York, create tremendous jobs and job opportunities for people in the state of New York, and are a good proponent of keeping people in the state of New York. So with me today is the lead sponsor in the New York State Assembly, Assembly Member Button Sean, who we're so appreciative of the great work she does in this bipartisan bill and working together on a lot of bills. Just tremendous. That's the way government should work. We have Jeff Williams, Director of Public Policy for the New York State Farm Bureau. He even found a parking place, he says, today, because protesters aren't here. We have Kevin Bowman, who's from the place where all good things emanate from, the 44th Senatorial District. He's the owner of Bowman's Orchards in Rexford. Tremendous apples. If you get a chance, get over there and visit. Natalie, I'm going to mess up her name because she told me it was tricky, but Bi-Partisan, but she knows it's wrong, but we love her anyway. So thank you for being here. New York Farm Bureau County Manager for Saratoga County. Paul Molesky, New York Farm Bureau District 8 Representative. And our ranker on agriculture, Senator George Borrello, who is a sponsor of this bill, one of the first sponsors on it, and Assemblywoman, we hate to see her go. I told her,
maybe you won't.
Convince you to stay? I told her, how can you retire at 39 years of age? What are you going to do? Eileen Gunther.
Aileen
Gunther.
After all these years.
I'm a man. I can't get names right for beautiful women.
I'm only kidding.
I know. So we're here today to basically give a boost and some assistance to one of our most significant and important industries we love, many of us, in the state of New York. And that is our family farms and all our farmers across the state, who create over 56,000 jobs in the state of New York. We love that. But who, as I mentioned earlier, put this tremendous nutrition and food out there, develop it, get it to the market, and get it to us across the state. It's a business and an industry that has been severely challenged in a whole variety of ways. It's one of the most significant industries in the state of New York, our farmers and the farming industry. I just want to read to you a little bit about how they're being challenged and what's happening in them and what the data looks like, and why we're here to put forth this tax credit from the investment tax credit policy we put in place last year of 20% to provide actual needed and improved and expanded housing for farm workers. So let me read this before I talk about a lot of things that can impact besides just being a farm worker and having an affordable house. It's going to affect the economy of New York State, and it's going to affect that exodus in a certain way. Talk about that a little bit more later. But between 2017 and 2022, New York lost 28,000 family farms, the steepest decline in the past 3 decades. New York also lost 364 acres of farmland over the last 5 years. A significant portion of the decline is in dairy farming, the largest commodity value in New York State. New York State saw a decrease of nearly 1,900 dairy farms. Every production expense saw a rise, from fertilizer and fuel to seed and lease prices. The biggest increase in production expenses in labor, which saw an astounding 41% jump in 5 years. New York's farms, as I mentioned, employ 56,678 people. All sectors of agriculture, including processing, are responsible for the nearly 200,000 jobs in New York State. Family farms are not only vital to the economy and vitality of the state, but also to the food security of New York by producing a portion of the food residents, large portion of the food residents need, close to their home. We have an exodus problem in New York State. We're number one in out-migration. 101,000 people left the state of New York last year. We're one of 7 states that lost a congressperson. We're projected to lose 3. Our birth rates seem limited. Our senior population is in the top 15, okay? We have some challenges in this state. Our farming industry has the challenges I just read. Housing and solving the housing problem is not going to be solved by a single piece of legislation or a budget. It's going to be a holistic approach. But this is a piece of the equation to deal with the housing concern we have in New York State. It incentivizes and assisted those farmers who are on the margins, who need workers, to incentivize the workers as they're incentivized, because with this 20% investment credit break, they may just be able to put those houses in place they need to build their production and to get their products to the market. And there's people out there who are homeless. They're part of the housing problem. They need to find affordable housing. If this gets into place and passes, and I think it's a no-brainer, it's just common sense, they're going to say to themselves, well, I thought about working on a farm. Wait a second. They're going to provide affordable housing for me? I'm going to sign up. I want to work for the farm. I need housing. So you're going to get incentivization of individuals for the dearth of farm worker needs, and you'll hear more about that from Kevin Bowman probably, that they need to work, get the products in place, and get them to markets. So this is a housing bill for one segment of those who need it. It's a bill to help the economy, because when people get a job, they have a house, they invest in the state of New York. They buy goods and services. They pay income taxes. They pay sales taxes. So when you're talking about 20% tax credit, which will cost some money maybe, well, you may get a lot of money in return because you're putting people into our system. You're providing for them in a multitude of ways. And the other issue is this. We've seen the weather in New York State, in the Northeast. It's unpredictable, but our farmers deal with that unpredictability. They can deal with it in a better way when you have 67-degree weather a couple days ago, and then today it's in the 30s with the wind probably into the 20s. We had snow drifts. When you get those freezes, when you get a heat wave at an unexpected time of the year when it shouldn't be there, or a freeze, you need those farm workers close by, on hand, to mitigate that. This helps in that way. So we have an investment tax grant system, and it works pretty well. It's for tractors. It's for building buildings where you would put chickens in production, things of that nature. But they forgot to add this important aspect of it. Affordable housing, giving a tax incentive, tax break to farmers if they put in place housing for farm workers. So I think it's a no-brainer. I'm pleased that I have a great sponsor and support in the New York State Assembly. We're working to get more sponsors. At this time, I'd like to have the lead sponsor, and we appreciate all the work she does on behalf of not only her assembly district, but the state of New York. And I'd like to introduce to you Assemblyman Button Sean from the Assembly, who is the lead sponsor of this particular 20% tax incentive for farmers to build housing for their farm workers.
Thank you very much.
Assemblywoman.
Thank you, Senator. Your leadership in the most important component of our workforce is housing. So this is something that is, you took the initiative to take a look at the piece that's missing for our farmers. So I thank you for that. To all the support that I have behind me, as well as my colleague in the Assembly, both of us sit on the Ag Committee. Our colleague in Ranker in the Senate. Again, this is so important. The Senator said it all, that when we talk about the needs of feeding our New Yorkers, our farmers are first and foremost for us to say, I'll do this. But more importantly, when we talk about the employees, we have to provide that whole package. The housing on the property, the housing that is close to that farm. I'm very fortunate in my area. I have Donito Farms, the Candelas. Each one of them have brought this issue as we do a farm tour annually to my colleagues in the assembly, is that housing is very concerning. From the employees' perspective, they bring their families with them. Their families love the communities. They love to be a part of rural America in regards to the farming industry, and they want to make sure their families are close in safe housing. So I thank you, Senator, for the clear initiative, and I clearly look forward to talking to more of our colleagues in the Assembly so that we can ensure that this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. And, you know, we have a lot of bills that we put out there and make common sense, and sometimes they take year after year after year. You talk about fine wine, sometimes they turn to vinegar. We don't want this to turn to vinegar. We need this right now to put the farm workers on the farms and give the family farms and farms the opportunity to put them there and to place them there, to help deal with the problem of a dearth of affordable housing and the need for farm workers. To my left is Senator George Borrello. You look at him, he looks like a very young man, handsome young man, and you'd think with the work he's done here, we've probably been here 20, 25 years. He hasn't been here that long. He's been here, how many years? 4 years. He's our ranking on agriculture, and he's done a tremendous amount to stand up, speak out, fight for it, develop legislation. One of the first guys, I think, that came to me and said, I got to be on that bill. My farms need farm workers. We got to get the products to markets, and that's my job as the ranker on agriculture. So thank you, Senator Borrello. Come on up and say a few words. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Senator Tedisco and Assemblyman Button-Shawn. We really appreciate your leadership on this. You know, I grew up in an agricultural community in Chautauqua County. Both of my grandfathers were grape farmers. Years ago, there was a workforce that was built in. It was the family. Most family farms were worked by the family. That is not the case any longer. Even when I was a kid, we all kind of did our time on farms, picking berries, tying grapes, whatever it might be. Those days are also gone. We rely on farm workers largely that come here from other countries legally through things like the federal H-2A program. That program requires, amongst other things, housing to be provided. And our farmers in our area have done a tremendous job of applying for and getting those H-2A programs, bringing those workers in. As was mentioned, they bring their families many times, but housing is still a challenge. We have farmers in our areas that have planned for housing, but the costs in the last few years with inflation have skyrocketed. The ability to get contractors, the cost of all the goods that you need, all the materials that you need, have made it unaffordable for our farmers. Housing is an issue across New York State. It is an issue, workforce housing. This is workforce housing directly. It is providing for our workers. It's giving the necessary incentive so that our farmers may actually be able to provide that housing, good housing. And this is a great bill, a great way for us to ensure that we have good workforce housing for a much-needed workforce for New York's #1 industry, which is agriculture. So thank you both for your leadership on this. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator, very much. Now, Assemblywoman Gunther, you're still working, you know. Would you like to say a few words? Because
You never know, I may never leave.
You have
That's
a
the
little-
way life is.
you have a little
But
experience with farming.
I do. I represent Sullivan and Orange County. We have the onion farmers down in Florida, New York, and I visit them often, and I think housing is tremendously important. You know, many of the people that come from different places in the United States actually stay in my community because they love it so much, And one of the important things is to make sure they're part of our community by providing, appropriate housing. So I'm all in on it. It's just important. Quality of life for everybody is important. And people that feed all of those that live both in New York State and states around us, they provide all of this in because they work hard, they have long hours, and I tell you, it's great that we have them here, and housing is important to keep them here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good job. Now, we also have the leadership here from the Farm Bureau who work so hard and help deal with the challenges and do the best they possibly can to make sure that the positive things happen for our farmers. And that is Jeff Williams, who is the Director of Public Policy for the New York State Farm Bureau. And I'd like to have Jeff come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much for hosting this, and more importantly, for introducing this legislation. It's so critical. It's a priority issue of New York Farm Bureau for 2024, so thank you very much. You've heard the numbers from the Senator. New York has lost almost 3,000 farms in the last 5 years. We're so grateful for this refundable investment tax credit. It's a 5-year window where farmers can get 20% back on their investments on their farm operation. That's not just economic stability, but it's governmental stability as well. Every business craves stability. We have seen farms across the state invest in their farms, new milking parlors, new tractors, new equipment. It's really a way to get farms back on their feet in this day and age. Unfortunately, there's a loophole in that program where farm housing isn't included. You can house chickens in a barn and get 20% back, but you can't house employees in high-quality housing under this tax credit. This bill fixes that issue once and for all. It allows farms to invest in their most critical resource, through farmers, and give them the best housing possible. It's not a small ask, but it's an important ask for not only for farms, but for farm workers. Thank you again for the sponsorship, and let's get this bill passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the real important individual here today, not that the rest of us, we appreciate all the support we're given, is an individual from the 44th Senatorial District. His name is Kevin Bowman, owner of Bowman Orchards in Rexford, and battles out there. He's got a great family farm, but sees the challenges that are taking place, and was out lobbying with all the other farmers and made a very good case for this particular bill. And I think that's what it takes sometimes. You have to make the facts, get them to the elected officials, and then get the bill in place and start a discussion of it. And I hope this discussion doesn't take too long to get in place, because we're going to need housing. And we're going to need to help farmers sustain the wonderful products they build and get to market and get to our tables. And Kevin Bowman is all a part of that with his family, and he's a great part of the 44th Senatorial District, and I'd like to have him come up and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you, all of you, for your work on this and for your insight and actually seeing reality. As Jeff said, it kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense to us that we could get a tax credit for housing chickens or cows or something, but when it came to people, we couldn't do that. And it doesn't make sense. And we appreciate the fact that you allowed 4 generations of Bowmans in your office a couple of weeks ago when we sat down and talked about that. And
Well, you brought apples.
well, yeah. And you wanted the hard cider, but they wouldn't let us through, so. But we appreciate your input and your help on this, and we hope that both chambers will come together. And wouldn't that be unique in New York, just to see us all work together at a common goal to once again make New York the empire state and something good and something positive. So thank you for your leadership, thank you for your help, and we hope we can move forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good job. Good. Appreciate it. Our last speaker is the New York Farm Bureau District 8 Representative, Paul Molesky, and we appreciate him being here and all the work he does across that particular region. Thank you, Paul.
Well, good morning, everyone. I come from a family farm, and as the District 8 Director, I work with farms across the Capital Region every day. I'm on the farm, and one of the most common benefits that I see those farms providing is housing. So there was an unfortunate omission in the investment tax credit when it was passed last year, and that was farm worker housing. So by including that in this, it'll correct that omission and then incentivize farms to help renovate or construct new housing for farm workers and address the issues that we've brought up here today. So thank you to the sponsors of the bill. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. And we appreciate you being here. If anybody has any questions, it's a pretty simple approach. People are on the margin. Farmers are on the margin. They'd like to hire more farm workers. They know an incentive would be to build housing for them. 20% tax credit for the investment tax credit proposal may just be the tipping point to allow them to do that. So we're going to give them the opportunity, hopefully, if we can get this bill moved. You got a question?
Is this something that you'd like to see in the state budget for this year or after the budget passes?
I'd like to see it happen this morning. If it's in the budget, I don't have a pride of authorship. We've got a supermajority in the New York State Assembly. We use the bully pulpit to a great extent when we think we have a positive idea in the New York State Senate. If one of my colleagues thinks they could do a better job carrying this bill but can promise me they will get it passed, I'll take my name off it and I'll put their name on it. And sometimes it takes doing that. But other than that, I think the common sense part of this idea and the necessity of that, if we want to keep our family farms and farms viable, help with the housing dearth we have, put people to work, help the economy, I think this helps all 19.5 million people in New York State. They all put food on their table. They'd all like to see more people working. They'd all like to see our farmers and our farm families thrive. So it should be a no-brainer for Democrats, Republicans, and the like of all of us. So we hope it gets passed sooner than later.
And I think, as the senator stated, this is just enhancing what many individuals supported last year. So it's not, it's a glitch that shouldn't have happened, so we're here to correct it. Clearly, as I had stated, I host a tour where colleagues come from Brooklyn to Buffalo, and they understand the importance of our farmers. So I will work in tandem to determine how we can move this forward. And I know you have a question.
Senator, did the state's increasing the farm workers rent threshold have to do with the assistance, the need for assistance in housing farm workers?
The argument for that was about that. Maybe.
I would say that does have a large portion of that because agriculture in New York State, we have two graphs, income and expenses, and they're going this way, and we can't continue that. The overtime threshold has done nothing but hurt the farmers. The H-2A program, which is an awesome program, but it's outdated, it's very expensive. And so we need to hire more farm workers. In order to hire more farm workers, we got to have housing to put them in, which is mandated by the law. And also, on my farm, we're inspected by 7 government agencies just in regard to H-2A. So you got to have good housing because none of those agencies talk, and that's federal and state. None of them talk to each other. And so we have to have the best possible housing, and we would want that for our people anyway, but this would hopefully allow us to move forward in that direction.
So, Alex when we're talking about farm worker shortage forever, what's the number of that? How many farm workers would the state need to keep its farms running now?
Wow. Yeah, best case scenario is a lot. right? Because, I mean, we want farms to grow and more farms to start. That means more farm workers, means more investment on farms, means more housing. And so I think the sky's the limit when it comes to that kind of paradigm. The worst case scenario is we need less workers, right? Because it means we're going the opposite direction. Sure.
I just want to say, though, clearly, I invited farmers from my district to be here. They can't. They're working too hard. Clearly, to the points that were just made, is obviously it's 3 hours in drive time and then to be here. And they said, I can't take the time, but I fully support what you're doing. And I'm sorry, Senator.
No, I just want to say, so some of you may know that I'm in the restaurant business. The restaurant business is also a business that's changing because of the cost of labor. We have increasing minimum wage costs. Of course, we've got the highest unemployment insurance now that we're paying because the state failed to put any money into the unemployment insurance fund. As a restaurant owner, I can tell you that there are ways for us to reduce labor, and we're taking those steps. Nationally, the restaurant industry is doing that. Farming is very different, okay? If you are a dairy farm, the cows need to be milked every day, multiple times a day. It's a labor-intensive, and there are ways to mechanize, but they're incredibly expensive. So having workers is the only solution for most farmers, particularly our small family farms. Better than 90% of farms in New York State are small family farms. Labor is the number one cost for them. So we've mentioned all the things that have been headwinds to agriculture. This is a small step in the right direction to ensure that they can meet those H-2A standards and be able to provide housing, which is what they want to do anyway. So that's important. I don't see the need for labor being reduced substantially because of the massive cost of being able to mechanize in the agriculture industry.
So that if I could segue off of that, I understand, forgive me if I'm mistaken, because taken into this budget, but last year was the housing.
Right.
Should that proposal end up being proposed again at a future budget, would this help reach that? Would this be something that would be used to help reach that goal?
Yeah, so you brought up the budget before, so let's understand that there was already money budgeted for this tax credit. It just didn't apply to housing. Will that have an impact on the overall cost? Potentially, but remember, budgets are estimates, and not everyone has taken advantage of them, so we don't know where we may have fallen into that. So I think this can be done without really having a big impact on the budget, and if need be, it can be adjusted. We adjust the budget all the time in order to make up for the fact that our estimates were just not accurate for whatever reason.
And I would, just emphasize once again that farm workers are the ones who can help mitigate a weather condition that comes out of nowhere. When they're in close proximity, you could save a crop or save a large portion of a crop. If a heat wave comes or a freeze, we know the weather happens. It's the Northeast. And they're at the whim and the strength of Mother Nature. So it's not only providing affordable housing as an incentive to take a job, but it's there in close proximity in many instances if there's an emergency. Another good byproduct of why this bill should be helping farmers put them on the farm or near.
When the migrant crisis comes up, I hear a lot about the need for farm workers also. Did migrant crisis come into factor? Because, again, housing is also an issue for migrants. Is this something that was considered to help address that issue?
Well, I talked about people being homeless. If there's people that are going to be homeless, they're probably migrant people who have come here. There's no process of assimilation. We're putting them in buses like chessboard pieces and moving them all across the state. You see what's happening in New York City. So yeah, short answer is yes to that. Here's a chance for them to not only get jobs, and farmers do use migrant workers, but also provide them a better setting, an affordable house while they're working here on those farm properties. So yeah, that's another byproduct of how it would help with the migrant issue if they're going to be here. Of course, the big problem in solving that is at the border, so we have them come in an assimilation process where they can maybe get training, get housing, and get jobs like jobs on family farms.
I just see this as an important aspect of not everyone is interested in farming or working, but clearly those that are, the workforce needs housing, just like any other sector. And workforce housing is so important to those individuals that choose to be a part of this profession, because it isn't for everyone. I have a Christmas tree farm, and we know that some folks get there and it's not for them. It's hard work, it's dedication. As the senator said, the weather decides when you're going to work. You don't just say, hey, today's a good day, I'll put 8. No, the weather will tell you when you're working. So it is a unique individual, and wherever that individual that wants to support this. So again, thank you for your forward thinking and the support, everyone behind me.
Yeah, in the investment tax credit proposal, mentioned all the things it could be utilized for. You could have the tractors, you could have the buildings, you can have the chickens. If you don't have the farm workers, you can't build the products. You can't get them to market. So they're extremely important, and a lot of them are thinking, well, I could work on a farm. I don't know if I want to. I get affordable housing, could put them over across the line that says, yeah, I'm going to go apply, see if I can work for. I'm going to get a housing because I don't have housing. I'm out in the street. You can bring people from the streets. They can be productive. They could help the economy, pay taxes, sales tax, income tax, and that will help us all. Thank you.